Hey, welcome back, friendly ghost friendlies and non-friendlies. How's everybody doing? Welcome to the channel Checkup, where I infrequently talk to y'all about just random stuff, mostly around the channel. It's time that I formally introduce the ranking board, which I've created like over a year ago. It's basically where I store all the games that I play. So I have a Hall of Fame, and then I have a Hall of Shame. And let's see, can I get the capture to switch over? I didn't update, I call it Hall of Mid is what I titled it. But both lists, this one's not as updated as the other one. Now granted, you may see some games up there and you be like, hey, wait a minute, Owl. I thought you liked these games that you listed up here. I can explain, right? Okay, so let's go over this first. Let me just say real quick, how's everybody doing? I hope everybody's having themselves a wonderful time. Thank you for subscribing. If you subscribe, much love. I appreciate everybody coming by, stopping by, and showing support. I'm not really a person who deals with a large populace, but I do appreciate it. That's really cool. My motto is if I can make anybody feel some sort of enjoyment or happiness or share anything of that good nature, then I feel like I've done my job. That's the only thing that I'm setting out to do, is to spread a good time. But let's get back to the ranking board. Recently, I have played some games and I have not updated them on my ranking list. But let me just go over some of the games that are up at the top. You may notice that some of these games are highlighted a brighter color than the others. Those are like, key locations. What do they call them? You know what I'm talking about, where you see a tall building and you're like, oh yeah, well, that's how I know where to go from here. That's what those are. These are games that I'm so sure of their placement. They help me order everything else. I might as well go over explaining each of these games and their placement. Oregon Trail 3 specifically is a game that I played when I was in homeschool many years ago. I think I might have played it in elementary at one point, and then when I was in middle school or in homeschool, they take us to every week we have to check in with this shady looking alley market lot. It's like a fish store right next to it, and a water store right next to it. And there's a bunch of mattresses. There's a lot of run down looking places, right? But inside this homeschool location, the building is way bigger on the inside than it looks on the outside. It's one of those places where every time you go to this spot, it looks like it's about to rain. Every time you go to this location, it somehow looks like it's about to rain. The sky's moody. Everything it feels damp. Yeah, so every time I want to take my homework in, I get yelled at by the teacher who is assigned to me, and then he's grading the work over some other stuff. And in the meantime, they let me go hop on a computer. They have a row of computers, and I would just hop on and I'll just start messing around. And Oregon Trail 3 was one of those games, and what I like about Oregon Trail is it feels alive in a way, and it has that feeling where you don't have to do all the legwork to make things happen. The random generatedness. I like that sensation where you're playing something and there's a bit of a dynamic world happening as well. And of course, Oregon Trail is not that advanced. It's just randomly generated at times, but that helps the sensation of, oh, what am I going to do about this? What am I going to do about that? I can prepare for this. Oh, was I prepared enough for that? That random sensation helps feel like an adventure is different, and it's more engaging because of that, because you don't feel like you're doing, again, all the imaginative legwork, and you feel like the game is it just helps it become more immersive. That's the best way I could put it. And I like a lot of games that are similar to that The only game that I can really think off the top of my head is like Oblivion. And when you get to games like that, then you have to deal with like the game's mechanics and all these other complicated stuff. Oregon Trail is just so simplistic. It's a game that you can play with your family, with your children, with your significant others, with your parents, your brothers, your sisters. It's a game you can play with anybody. It's so simple and easy to go into. And again, the game helps itself in providing that imaginative push where you don't have to do all the legwork yourself to feel like, it's engaging and immersive. So I really appreciate Oregon Trail because of that. And that's why it's my number one game up here. It's not real. I don't think it's the greatest game ever, like my board suggests, but I do think it is the type of game that I always look for, regardless of what game that I play. It's always the type of game that I'm looking for. Does it have some elements of this, some survival elements, some living worlds or dynamic world elements? Does it have that? And if it does, then it's more likely going to be a game I look at very fondly. So Oregon Trail 3, that's why it's to my top of the list. It's my ideal type of game, of any game that has something similar to that. Next on my list, you see it's a gap. There's no real reason for the gap. I just try to create some room, I can't put every game up at the top of the list. Third Strike. Now, Third Strike is not my favorite fighting game, but I'll be damned if I don't appreciate it and can't understand, how great it is. It's very addictive. The parry mechanics are very free and it's very skillful, and it creates that openness that you always want in a fighting game, where you feel like you can overcome with skill. Now, I'm not a top tier Third Strike player. I've only played for like 3 to 4 years, but even in my short time playing it, I've seen it off and on throughout the years, and it's just one of those games that's so cool. It feels down to earth. It's nothing about it feels like it's glitter or glamoury. You feel like Third Strike is something you can kind of see with there's a connection there. There's a connection that I think people have with Third Strike, where you can hear it, you can see it, you visualize it, you could play it, and everything about it just feels like it connects on a relatable level. The sounds like a casino a lot of the times, and it has a bit of a lo-fi, jazzy, music that you wouldn't typically just listen to if you were going by your day-to-day life, but you probably do listen to, like some old heads around you, and you're like, okay, it's not that bad. It's got that. It's got, the graphics, the artwork looks great. The environments look great, and down to earth, and everything about it is just, from that, the visual to the gameplay to the feel to the sound, it's maxed out. It's a game that's maxed out, and it's a game that probably is going to live forever, regardless of what it does. So yeah, Third Strike is one of those games. The parry mechanic, very similar to the Soul Calibur mechanics, where guard impact opens up the flow of the game and always gives you a fighting chance, regardless of your character's tier. Third Strike's parry mechanics also doing the same thing, opens up those type of avenues, and just makes the game feel not just feel, but makes the game very open-ended. So yeah, it's in my opinion the greatest fighting game ever. Just in my opinion of what the populace would say. For me personally, I have games I like more, but Third Strike, I understand. the latest addition on my list is Valkyrie Profile 1. Now, this one is a spot that is kind of half Valkyrie Profile 1 and 2, but I can only put one game in the spot. Depending on which you value most, gameplay or story. It depends on which one gets placed where, just swap them back and forth. But Valkyrie Profile 1, speaking on it as it is on my list, Valkyrie Profile 1 is a game that you understand. It's a game that you, as a kid, you feel like you're watching a cartoon, right? Valkyrie Profile 1, to sum it up, it feels like a Saturday morning cartoon. And I say the same thing about The Legend of Dragoon. And that is like the highest compliment I could give for any JRPG, is if it feels like a Saturday morning cartoon, it's a high chance that it's going to be a goated experience, because it just means it's so immersive and charmful, if that's a word. It has so much charm that it will linger and last in your mind for years and years and years. And Valkyrie Profile is one of those games where it not only lands on that memorable voice lines and music, and then you add on the gameplay on top of it, and how creative the gameplay is and how much room you have to create with it. You have a game that is, in my opinion, the greatest JRPG ever. Granted, I haven't played them all. I'm still playing my channel. I'm still searching and playing games that are suggested to me. If you have games to suggest to me, more than likely won't play that many JRPGs. But if I look into it and it's like up my alley, then you never know. We have a Valkyrie Profile situation. It wound up in the highest slot that I can give a game. But yeah, Valkyrie Profile is the truth. It's challenging. There's room for player agency, creativity, and it feels like a Saturday morning cartoon on top of that. And it's just a hell of a time. Just a hell of a time. Parasite Eve. Parasite Eve 1 was the first game I believe I played on my channel that wasn't Legend of Dragoon or Soul Calibur. It's the first playthrough I did, I believe, at least that I finished. And if Valkyrie Profile is a Saturday morning cartoon, Parasite Eve is a early 2000s, what do you call it? So it's an early 2000s TV show, right? Like for me, I like watching Monk, but a lot of people say, I don't know, some other thing, Twin Peaks or something like that. But anyways, I like watching the Monk, and it's like one of those early 2000s sensations, right, of a TV show. And Parasite Eve rather captures that feeling. Again, it's one of those games that I won't say feels down to earth, but the music, man, the music does a lot of lifting. And it does feel good having a game that takes place in a short amount of time, and it actually feels like it's happening in a short amount of time. You know, sometimes you play a game and it just feels like, oh, this is going on forever and ever and ever and ever. It's got to at least be a few years now, right? So much has happened. We've run across the whole country, the whole globe. We're in outer space and all this. And it's like, oh yeah, only a couple of hours passed. Parasite Eve doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's only takes place within a couple days, and that's exactly what it is. So it does something where it really captures what it's trying to tell you, what it's trying to show you. The gameplay also feels pretty good. It's a creative game. I believe it's one of the first of its kind with semi-action elements to it, to the JRPG flow. And yeah, it's creative, so you got to give it that props. And yeah, that's really all I can say about it. It's a fun game. The worst thing about it is Aya runs like a freaking snail. And that is when you're trying to go from place to place on the world maps or do the dungeons or whatever, it takes some time. She runs so slow, so freaking slow. But otherwise, it's a great game, great storytelling, and great music on top of that. Soul Calibur 2. Notice I'm not ranking any of these games. They're just all in the 90s tab, the legendaries tab, if you will. So they're all in the 90s, and they're just tier listed in order. Soul Calibur 2. Everything that I said about Third Strike can apply to Soul Calibur 2, except for without the groundedness. I don't think Soul Calibur is as grounded as Street Fighter Third Strike. You don't feel like you can really relate to any of the characters or the settings or anything like that, or even the music. It very much feels like a fantasy. And loosely, it feels like it can be a historical fantasy. But at the very least, it feels like you can accept it for what it is and what it's trying to be. And with that, you can dig it. The gameplay, on the other hand, is one of those that you just pick up and you say, oh yeah, this is the one. Oh yeah, this is the one. This is the one that feels right. I understand. I feel like I'm connected. Everything just makes sense, and then you add on the creativity of, the freedom you have with the guard impacts and back and forth battles, and how pretty much everything in the game can be neutralized. I don't want to take the words too far, too literal, but you can kind of neutralize each character if you're great with guard impacts, if you know how to play defense. And some games where you can just overwhelm the opponent and you're just like, you just got to hold this or prevent me from getting to it. Third Strike and Soul Calibur 2 are one of those games where, like, if you're really good at defense and knowing the matchups and, again, good with guard impacts, anything's possible with any type of tier of character. And that's a great feeling. It's a great feeling because Soul Calibur is a game that is heavy on mind games and just feints and decision making, and it's very fast paced. Personally, it's not my favorite Soul Calibur. It's my second favorite Soul Calibur. But I know it's the best Soul Calibur. I know it is the best. But for me personally, it's my second favorite. But it is the best Soul Calibur game ever made. And it is just weird. Why are they trying to get away from it? Soul Calibur 2 is great with movement. Moving your characters around feels so good, and it's so smooth. You have so much mobility and freedom to move around, and it's like in every other Soul Calibur game, they are trying to, like, how can we restrict your movement even more? How can we punish you for trying to move your character? How can we punish you and make you not want to play our game? And Soul Calibur 2 was like, it was the last game where they said, okay, we're just going to let them have the world. And that's just going to be that. That's just going to be that. We are going to let our players enjoy the sensation of pressing buttons. And then Soul Calibur 3 comes along and like, okay, we don't want that. And then every other following game, they just got more and more strict. And consequently, each one of those games got worse and worse and worse. Because they're I'm going to spill right now, but they're punishing players for trying to play their game and have fun. It just doesn't seem like a good policy, if you ask me. But then again, that's why Soul Calibur is in the state that it is currently in. Soul Calibur 2 is the greatest sword fighting game of all time. The best weapon fighting game of all time. And I'll even say it is the best 3D fighting game of all time. Soul Calibur 2 is the GOAT. Next on my list is my favorite, Soul Blade, otherwise known as Soul Edge. Now on my channel, Soul Edge is a big portion of what I normally do. Recently I've been labbing the game even harder, and I'm more likely to continue doing that. The game is much better than the general consensus of it is. A lot of people look at the game and think like, oh, it's not even 60 frames. Oh, this kind of feels kind of yada yada yada. You know, and they kind of say like, oh, it feels like clunky like Tekken 2. And that's just not true. That is just not true at all. Soul Blade is nowhere near as clunky as Tekken 2. In fact, it's not clunky at all. It is so, like, you have so much control in your movement forward, back, and up. Everything is like at a snap. The only thing that is kind of slow, or would be slow, is getting off the ground, which is very calculated. It's, you know, you just have to understand how it works. It's not clunky at all. And it's very much a game that hadn't gotten a fair shake, I feel. But if you take time to like lab the game, Soul Blade it's got a lot of depth. It's got a lot of counterplays. It's got guard impacts are strong in this game. They are incredibly strong. Guard impacts are take the parry and take the guard impact from Soul Calibur 2 and turn it into the perfect parry of Street Fighter 6 without this damage scaling, and you have the guard impact from Soul Edge. But because it's so strong, it doesn't guard impact kicks like the other game. And I believe in Soul Calibur 6 you can guard impact throws. You can't do that in this game. And there are certain moves that are just, you can't guard impact as well. And there's a guard meter similar to Soul Calibur 6. But the guard meter doubles as your super meter, which also doubles as your weapon and your entire move list for that character. So you have a choice to use your super, known as the critical edge, but it does a lot of damage, but it can be guard impacted, and it costs your weapon meter. And if you lose your weapon meter, you lose your entire move list for that round. You also start taking chip damage. And so there's a lot of, you know, decisions on that. It also has another use where the critical edge does a lot of guard damage. So you can use that to try to empty your opponent's weapon gauge. And there's a lot of weapon gauge tactics and, you know, again, moves that can't be guard impacted, but do weapon damage. And so there's just a lot of game play and strategies that are very valid in this game. Because guard impacts are so strong, you're more than likely want to start using more kicks or blunt strikes or throws. And then you have the moon jumps, which makes the game feel kind of like a 2D game, and the side steps also making the game feel kind of like a 2D game, but with side steps included, obviously. And it's just a game that every character is really strong. Every character is really, really strong. There's a lot of freedom with movement. There's no punishing the player for movement. It's a game that's very whiff punish heavy. It's a game that, again, you have to be wary of your guard meter. And also you can try to punish your opponent's guard meter. And like for me personally, I think it's a game where any character can be very, very, very strong in the right hands. And it's also a game that just has a lot of untapped potential. On top of that, there's combos in this game that don't feel intrusive like the later Soul Calibers. You know, where they start adding combos that are like 10 seconds long. You stand them, restand them, hit them against the wall, knock them back in the air, and then go into like a super animation that also takes another 10 seconds. Combos in this game are very precise. You launch them, maybe get 1 or 2 hits, and then you have a chance to go into the ground game depending on what juggle combo you have done. And then there's just a lot of, you know, creative ways that you can go about it. And again, having Oki and forcing people to block and take guard damage, and then yeah, it's just a game that it's so fun. It feels good. It's not as on the cover like Soul Calibur 2, where Soul Calibur 2 is just right out the gate. You can see and tell this is like one of the game for the ages. Soul Blade is a game that you kind of have to emulate the game and practice before you can start saying, oh, well, this is a counter to that. This is a counter to this. Oh, this is what this can do. This is what that can do. Oh, wow. There's like recovery councils. There's like a lot of type of councils in this game. And oh, this is safe. Oh, wow. This is really cheap. Oh, wow. This can't be guard impacted. Oh, wow. This is whoa. You know, and it's a lot of things that you would never know because practice didn't come easy in these type of games. But yeah, it's in my opinion, it is the best fighting game. I can't even say that, but it is my favorite fighting game of all time, and I don't think it gets a fair shake, but it is pretty damn great. Legend of Dragoon, I don't even know if I need to say anything about it. A lot of people may have found my channel because of the Legend of Dragoon. Yeah, I just personally think it's just a great game. I love nature. I love greenery. And then the music of Legend of Dragoon. If you were to say, what does the PlayStation 1 sound like? What does the PlayStation 1 sound like? And if you were to come up with a soundtrack, and you were just to say, what soundtrack best represents the whole category of PS1 games, where if I can hear and listen to it, I feel like I'm in a time capsule, and I can hear the pixels, I can hear the olden days, I can hear where I was at this point in time. I can hear this game being created from the music alone. I can hear games from other studios and yada 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 just by listening to this soundtrack. I think Legend of Dragoon is that game. It's also that game just from visually looking at it. Looking at Legend of Dragoon and listening to the Legend of Dragoon, you will get that sensation that you have been transported back into the late 90s, early 2000s. There's no such thing as the internet, or at least it's not anywhere near as big. Cell phones really don't exist that much. There's no guides or help to do anything. Your memory card is corrupted. You buy another memory card. Everything is on CD. You're playing a game. You're still finding out things on your own because there's no way to communicate with other players across the world. You're still finding secrets. What the hell does Stardust even do? How many characters can I unlock? What's all this extra stuff? Legend of Dragoon is, in my opinion, the game that it epitomizes the entire PlayStation category. In my opinion, And then you add on the fact that the gameplay is fun and even skillful. It's pretty skillful. It is. Playing Legend of Dragoon, you may notice a lot of the games I play, there is elements you can take from these games and apply them to fighting games. Legend of Dragoon is a game entirely about just frames. Not very tight just frames, depending on which character you're using and which attack you're using. But it is a game that is very heavily reliant on your reflexes and your timing. And it's a fun game. What can I say? The whole time I'm playing it is like nothing but nature and greenery in my face. The music transporting me back in time, the characters, and it's just a good time. If you wanted a game that just to take you away on an adventure, or you need a mental vacation, Legend of Dragoon is a game that you play if you want a mental vacation back to the 90s. Enough said. Valkyrie Profile 2. Again, one of the newer additions to the channel. Again, I said it, you could just swap back and forth between this and the first Valkyrie Profile game, depending on whether you like the story more or the gameplay more. Valkyrie Profile 1 is a Saturday morning cartoon as its best selling point. Legend of Dragoon is that as well. But Valkyrie Profile 2 would be the anime that you watch or the show that you watch, cartoon or whatever, once you've grown into a teenager, and start liking things like Ghost in the Shell. Once you've grown to that point where you can start appreciating things like that, then you're in Valkyrie Profile 2 territory. Or if you just like Kingdom Hearts, because there is a bit of Kingdom Hearts-ness to Valkyrie Profile 2. Not that much, thankfully. It's not that much, just some of the character designs, but other than that, Valkyrie Profile 2 is a game that it's not about what the game is presenting to you. It's about what you can do with it. You can get even more creative than the first game. And I would even say it is doubled how creative you can get, how much you can mess around with. It's like, it's nowhere near as strong as the first game in being memorable. It's nowhere near as strong, but I'd say it's just, in my personal opinion, I think Valkyrie Profile 2 is a video game, a better pressing buttons game than the first game. But does that make it a better video game? Well, I'd like to play Valkyrie Profile 2 more. I like to play it more. But I don't think that discounts Valkyrie Profile 1 at all, because Valkyrie Profile 1 is also a great game. But I'm attracted to the second game more. I like the characters more in the first game. I like playing the game more in the second game. I like the dungeons more in the first game. I like the environments more. I like the music more. I like the voices more, the story more. I like messing around with the skills more in the second game. I like choosing my party more in the second game. I like, everything around that nature in the second game. And so it's really just, I don't know. Some people hate the second game. Some people hate Valkyrie Profile 2. I love it. It's like these. It's like the Challengers version of Valkyrie Profile, where if you you're not going to get a lot of fanfare. You're not going to get a lot of that, but you are going to be invited to that party at the end of the school year where all of a sudden the teachers aren't as strict anymore. They're letting loose, they're letting it fly. You know, they're hanging out with you like they're your buddies. You know, not all the classmates were invited because they's like, fuck this school, I don't want to be here no more. Thank God this shit is closing down. Thank God I'm graduating, whatever. The people who went to that party, who went to this, they got to eat some of the best pizza of their lives. They got to, you know, they maybe got to drink a little bit. Maybe they got some phone numbers from some chicks who if more people went, maybe you would have never had a chance. Or maybe you know, some guy you like, or if you, whoever your affiliation is with, you know, maybe it's just an opportunity, and it allows for you to, I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. But what I'm trying to say, it's very much low key, but also it's still the same location. It's still the same thing. It's just an older vibe, right? It's an older vibe. I don't know if that made any sense, but Valkyrie Profile 2 is a great game, and it's the Souls game of Valkyrie Profile. Valkyrie Profile 2 is the Souls game, it's the Challengers game, it is that game of the Valkyrie Profile series, and I personally think it is the best JRPG ever made, gameplay wise and combat wise. I don't think there's going to be a combat based video game JRPG that ever tops Valkyrie Profile 2. I don't think it's going to exist. If you like combat based games, Valkyrie Profile 2 is a game for you. I'll end it on that. RuneScape is a game I played in my early years when I was searching for that Oregon Trail feeling. And while it wasn't quite that, it did provide me with countless memories, and again, the appreciation that I have for nature and greeneries and just the easy ongoingness. In a lot of ways, RuneScape carries the classic video game spirit with the memorable sound effects, musical chimes and jingles and sound effects. RuneScape is a game that is very addicting, and it probably could have ruined people's lives, but for people who were able to just, you know, just take it in moderation and not overdose on it, RuneScape was a game that is just a fond memory. You know, I made some friends from playing RuneScape in a private school. And yeah, it was just cool. It was just cool. So yeah, RuneScape is just a game. If nothing else, you can still listen to the soundtrack of RuneScape, and very much like Legend of Dragoon, you'll be transported back in the past very, very easily, very, very quickly, regardless of whether or not you've played it or not. Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I'm gonna start speedrunning some of this. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 gets the best Sonic game ever made. No question about it. I don't think it has the best soundtrack, but it has some of the best sound effects, and it has like 1 or 3 of the best songs ever made in video game history. You know, and that's all I really have to say about that. Gran Turismo is like one of the first games I ever played. Not ever played, but one of the first games I've ever gotten. My mom got me this game for my birthday. Yeah. Oh yeah. It was Gran Turismo and Soul Blade. Those are the very first games I've ever owned that I got for like my 5th or 6th birthday. And, you know, yeah, Gran Turismo, I used to play that a lot. I used to play that. Oh man, my most prominent memories are the license tests, where you have to do like a full, like 1 to 2 minute lap. 1 to 2 minute lap with this slow ass car. Only to find out that you're a couple seconds short. Oh man, I would hate playing this game now. Oh man, I would hate playing it now. And my other memory is there is a 60 lap race that I did once. And I remember I started this race. I was in like a Mitsubishi, whatever the race track, the race car formula of the Mitsubishi car was. And yeah, it might have been the Honda version. And I was like behind on my homework or something like that. And where either something happened where my mom was upset at me, right? I think I was on a sick day, right? I didn't want to go to school, or I was something. I ended up staying home, and my mom wanted me to go to school, but she kind of caved in or something like that. And so she's like, well, if you're going to stay home, no video games, no TV, no nothing, right? And so I stayed home and I just played video games on mute. And I started the Gran Turismo race. It was 60 laps, and it was like that nighttime stage, the circuit or something like that. And I was on like lap 40 or something like that. And my mom called me. And I don't know if you could pause it. I think you could pause it. I don't remember. Maybe you couldn't pause it. I don't know what happened, but I think you could pause it. But like I was on like lap 40 or 50. I was near the end, right? It took like 30 something minutes. And I paused it in like an intersection where you have to slow down and make a tight left turn, and then make a squeezing tight right turn, and then make another left turn, real tight back-to-back corners. And so I paused it, saw what she wanted. And then I came back after like doing like some chores or something like that. I came back, turned it on. And I turned it on, and I just like hit the gas and like, oh yeah, this turn, I can make this. I hit the gas and like started turning, and then I head first into like the banister. And it's one of those turns in Gran Turismo 1 whenever you hit it, your car just starts spinning out. Regardless of what speed you were going, it just starts spinning out. And I remember that shit happening, and it was like, holy shit. Because this is a type of race where the gaps just start, it's like minutes apart at this point. The gap between first place and second place is like a minutes apart, and every other place, minutes apart. Maybe first place and sixth place, or however many places were in this game, is like just about a 2-minute gap between. And I remember seeing that car pass me up. Second place passed me up. And I remember just feeling mortified. I felt mortified. But yeah, that's like one of my the most prominent memories of the game. Getting the Dodge Viper music, and whatever other music it was. Dun, 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 oh yeah, it also introduced me to Garbage and Shirley Manson. Probably the only rock-based music that I ever listened to. It introduced me to Shirley Manson and Garbage. Nothing, something is will leave you long after you're dead and gone. If flesh could crawl, my skin would fall from off my bones and run away from here. It's far from. I never say that next part, but yeah, it reminds me. Oh yeah, it introduced me to the Garbage, and yeah, they're a cool band. They're cool. I like their music. Shirley Manson for a period of time. You know, I'm just saying, if I were older, you know, hey, I would. If I were older, I would respectfully, I don't know, send some flowers. You know, I don't know. I still might send some flowers. Shirley Manson is sick. That's all I gotta say. Shirley Manson's sick. Anyways, yeah. So it introduced me to a lot of stuff, and Gran Turismo 1 is just pretty cool. Nothing really that crazy about it. It's just very much heavily leaned on nostalgia. And that's everything in the 90s tier rank. Moving down to the 80s. The 80s symbolized for great. Top of the list, Legacy of Goku 2. My opinion, the greatest Dragon Ball Z game ever made. You know, it's a good game. Good game. It's a good game. It's a game that has a lot of charm. I don't think there's any Dragon Ball game that has more charm than Legacy of Goku 2. Bottom line, you know, if you're a Dragon Ball Z fan, you should play this game because it's as close as you can get to the feeling of having watched the show back in the early 2000s and the late 90s, or maybe the 90s, depending on where you watched it. You know, it's as close as you can get to the first time sensation of we living that time era. Legacy of Goku 2 is there for you. Not the first game. Legacy of Goku 2 specifically. Vagrant Story is a game that I should probably get back to playing, but I also don't think it's this high on my list. Every game that is not highlighted like this are games that will be moved around throughout the days and years. Vagrant Story is a game that I can appreciate, but it's also a game that I feel like has a lot of faults mixed in with a lot of good. Is basically Parasite Eve-esque combat, basically, but a lot more convoluted. And the reason why I think there's this one specific thing that would have me take this out of this spot and put it lower. Because Vagrant Story, you always have to be in your menus, changing your weapons, and doing all of these menu surfing, and it's taking you out of playing the game. Unless you're like an expert, you've been there before and you know what you're doing at all times and yada yada yada. You're a guru at Vagrant Story, or you're playing with a guide. You're going to be in the menus a lot. And you're going to be forced to do this. It's not like it's optional. It is a forced thing because you will do 0 damage. 0 if you don't. And so it's that forced to do type of angle. And that is why I don't think I would have it this high. But if taking that aspect away, then I would say that this game is exactly where I placed it. I didn't finish it, I didn't beat it, but I played it for a couple hours. Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist of the Roses, on the other hand, is a all-time favorite of mine. I would have said this was the best PlayStation 2 RPG of all time. It's not an RPG, but it kind of feels like it. I would have said that before I played Valkyrie Profile 2. I can no longer say that, but it is an all-time classic, and the music is pretty on point, right? It is a very on point game musically. And playing a game is a lot of fun, right? It's a game that is not really based on Yu-Gi-Oh! It's got its own rules and regulations. It's in the same universe, and it has a lot of the same talking points and numbers, but a lot of it is also unique and different. But it's also just like a party game and a board game, and it's just got a lot of charm. Again, it's a game with a lot of charm. It's got its own direction. You don't need to watch the show or know anything about the card game to play this. You can just be completely new playing this game. Have no context of a show or even know what a card is, let alone a Yu-Gi-Oh card. You can play this game and it's going to tell you everything you need to know. Because it's not Yu-Gi-Oh! This is not Yu-Gi-Oh! This is an RPG. An RPG with Yu-Gi-Oh! Like rules, loosely, but it's doing its own thing. So yeah, I would employ people who have not played this game, even those who don't like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or even don't like anime. And if you just like board games and RPGs, and you like music, and you want something that's kind of weird and trippy and just also has just sound effects that make you kind of drool and like, oh yeah, I love video games. Oh yeah, give me that sound effect ASMR. Yu-Gi-Oh! The Duelist of the Roses is that game. And it's really good. It's really good. Really good. Next on my list, Resident Evil 3. It's my favorite Resident Evil. I haven't played all the Resident Evils, so don't come at me talking like, what about this one? I haven't played it. I have not played it. I have seen other games. I have not played them. I've played this one and I liked it. I enjoyed it. I have personal attachments to it. It's pretty fun. I like it. Again, subject to be moved around. Kudelka is a highlighted game. It's a highlighted game of mine. Kudelka is that type of game that you've played where you rent something at a Blockbuster. You were out buying pizza with your folks or whoever, friends, spending the night having a sleepover. You wanted something to watch. In this day and age, it'd probably be a movie. Even back then, it'd be a movie, but you like video games. Your companion likes video games. So you get a pizza, and then you go next door from Blockbuster, and you rent a video game. Kudelka is that game that you've rented. Kudelka is that game that you spent the night with. Kudelka is that game that gave you that lasting memory of eating that pizza that day on that night while going to Blockbusters. That is Kudelka. That is Kudelka. That's really all I need to say about it. That's all I really need to say about it. Just play the game, you know what I mean. Right? Nothing about it is high quality. It's just a game that does medium high quality very well. But also is not without its faults. Street Fighter 6. Now I'm gonna say something a little bit. I'm gonna get on a bit of a tangent here with Street Fighter 6. Enjoy these pixels real quick. Hold up. Street Fighter 6 is in the mid 80s for me. Previously, I said Street Fighter 6 has the chance to be the best fighting game of the decade. And this is holding up to be true still to this day. 1 year, 2 years later, it is still holding up to be true. Tekken 8, it's not really showing that it's not It's not going to be that competition. Mortal Kombat 1, I've never had faith in it, ever. I know it's not that competition, right? But Street Fighter 6, it's that game. It's that high profile game that people go to for fighting games. And yeah, I agree. This is why I have it in this spot. Because even while I've said that, I don't think it's without faults. I also don't think it is the greatest thing since pepperoni pizza. It is very firmly in the mid section of 80s, which is, if Kudelka I have it like an 85, I'm just putting a random number on it. Street Fighter 6 would be an 84 for me. Gameplay wise, right? Now that the game has kind of been figured out, it's kind of, people are kind of cooling off on it. They know what to do. They know the meta for it and what that really entails. So that original 90 score that every outlet gave it, understandable, but the here and now, it's like an early to mid 80 level of game. Drive, rush, jab, throw. Jive, rush, vibe, rush, jab, throw. That's the type of game it is. That original sensation you had of the drive system allowing so much creativity and opportunities for unique gameplay, game flows, and combos, and all of that is kind of gone. It's kind of out the window now because we see the limitations of the drive system, and it's also pigeonholing a lot of people into doing one thing. Now, there's still unique game styles and people playing, not often, but there are some few who you can tell who's playing versus who. But the overall, the general, what you are likely to see is crouch medium, drive rush, or some unreactable drive rush shenanigans. And that's pretty much the whole game. Random perfect parry, get somebody to the corner, throw loops. They tech the throw, you shimmied, they lost 50 to 60%. Oh, they've blocked too much. They played too much defense. They've blocked everything correctly. Well, they're out of drive gates now. It's time to checkmate them. It's a game that I feel needs a bigger update than what Season 2 was. Street Fighter 6, in my opinion, needs a bigger update than what Season 2 was. Season 2 gave you a better drive reversal, but it's still not that good. It doesn't really solve anything that was kind of the consensus for Season 1. And so those, it's just a continuing ordeal up until this day. And I don't have the answers. I have a lot of I guess, ideas. I have a lot of ideas. None of them, I would ever champion as this is what should be done. But, I just would hope for a more creativity. Because the game as is pigeonholes a lot of people into playing a certain style, a certain type of way. And that's kind of the opposite of what the drive gauge was intended to do. So I don't know if I would hope for maybe a drive groove system, where they're going with the KOF, vibe right now. What if there's a selectable drive groove for your character, and one of them is the drive rush package, but the other packages are things that counter that, or I don't know, they're more classic style, or they involve super meter management more, or I don't know, something that just shakes things up, like a parry drive groove. I don't know, that gives you red parry, or I don't know. People, you hear the word red parry, and I know a lot of Street Fighter players would lose their respective minds, and like, they'll try to bury somebody beneath the earth for even suggesting that. But hear me out. What if perfect parry were reworked and then they added a red parry, and red parry became what is today's perfect parry, and it becomes the turnstile with heavily scaled damage, even more scaled damage. Let's say a red parry gives you even more scaled damage, right? To the point where it's, you really don't get anything other than getting the person off of you. And what if that is just regulated to a specific drive groove package in this scenario? So you lose out on things like drive rush counseling at least, and then you get the red parry, but it scales heavily, and it's just a better option than, but there's like it's a better option than reversal, but it's, let's say if you mistime it, then you just get hit. I don't know, because I don't know how daring they are willing to go. But in Third Strike, if you miss a red parry, if you missed a parry, you're just getting hit. So I feel like that's really the only way to balance it. If you miss your parry timing, you should get clapped. It's just the way it should be. But I also think that reworking the perfect parry as it is shouldn't be a turnstile. I feel like it should just be a get off me thing. It should be more of a perfect guard than a perfect parry, where it just resets. Maybe it doesn't reset to neutral. Maybe it just leaves you at a +3 or something like that, but it doesn't guarantee you a punish. I feel like it should just be a turnstile, but not guaranteed damage. That's how I feel about perfect parry. I would change it to that. So if you get a random perfect parry, they shouldn't get to act immediately, but they should get like, I don't know, -3 off of whatever it was that they perfect parry, from their block stun. That's what I would do. And then you don't have to scale anything, right? You don't have to do the scaling thing. You just, because there's no punish, unless, there would be no punish. And then there will be like things like counter perfect parry. So they perfect parried you, so they get the initiative to take the next turn, but you still get to guard and do something against it. So that's what I would personally do for perfect parry. And then I would change a lot of the things like the throw loops out. You can start adjusting things like that. But I do think perfect parry stealing a turn and not really having a downside other than being thrown, I feel like that could be ironed out a lot more. And I think it would just be a lot more exciting if we have more of those guard impact like battles, instead of, oh, he perfect parry, oh, now he's put you in a corner, okay, well, now throw loops. I think it would be more exciting if, like, oh, he perfect parried, oh, he perfect parried right back, oh, he DI'd that, or he supered, he did his loyal fans, or oh, he back dash out of the throw, he jumped the throw, or something like. If it was more back and forth like that, I feel like more engagement should be encouraged than just stealing a turn. And I feel like that's what perfect parry is right now. I also feel like that's what drive rush is right now. I'm just gonna steal this turn. And I wish there was more counter to, like, okay, perfect parry. Okay, but now mind games. Perfect parry doesn't mean I automatically win. It just means now the next layer of the mind game. Drive rush should cost more because it is a turnstile without having any real scaling added onto it. Not enough for how beneficial it is. You know, so I think Drive Rush is a way bigger problem than Perfect Parry, but I feel like both of them should be looked at in that facet because they're both turnstiles without encouraging engagement. They're actually unencouraging. They're discouraging engagement, if anything. You know, so I think they want to look at that because that doesn't sound like something that they want the gameplay philosophy should be, but I'm not, you know, I'm not somebody making the game. I'm just somebody spectating on what I think would be fun. Anyways, that's what I think about Street Fighter 6 so far. I'd also like selectable supers because I'm sick and tired of seeing those long ass cinematics, but that's just me. And yeah, the more we go down this list, the more it's just going to be a lot more. There's a lot of games, man. I think I should stop for now. But I do want to add like one game in here. Right. That game would be Yu Yu Hakusho Sunset Fighters. I've played like 4 Yu Yu Hakusho games. Maybe like 5 in my lifetime. Maybe 6. I think this is the best one. But that said, I'd put it like... I'd put it personally, I put it like... right here. I put it right here. So it's the lowest on my Hall of Fame list. There's no real getting around how awkward it feels. As a fighting game, that's like the last thing you want. But I still think it is the best Yu Yu Hakusho game ever made. At least fighting game. And it's definitely worth checking out. Yu Yu Hakusho Sunset Fighters. There's a Super Nintendo game called Yu Yu Hakusho Final. I will put that lower on this list. Right now it's like, this is like a 71, 72. I say Yu Yu Hakusho Final is like a 65 to 70, you know? But anyways, there's a lot more games to cover, but that's kind of just to give you a primer of... We stopped at Dragon the Ancient Gates. Yeah, so maybe I'll continue going over this list in the future. For now, I talked too much and my voice is tired. So I bid you further ado. I hope everyone's having themselves a good time, a good day, and may peace be with you. May peace be with. Always keep your heads up. Deuces, dos, bows, adios. Stay cool. If you like this content, be sure to show some love. But always be sure to show that love to the people who matter to you. So, y'all bidding farewell, peace, much love, and stay cool. Deuces.